Alright, welcome back to another video. This has been my first video in a bit of a while. I had finals and then I took a little break. But as many of you know, there is an election in Georgia in just a couple days. It's a very big election, a lot of money's gone into it. And I'm going to kind of cover it and make a prediction tonight. I'm just going to make one video about this. Georgia race, I might make one, I'll make one after it for sure, kind of going through the Georgia election, and then I might do a couple more reflections on this last election, and then we're going to look on to 2022, because in a lot of swing states, Senate elections, House elections, governor elections, those, campaign season starts in June, July for those races, a year and a half or so before. So, as a nation, we go through pretty long election cycles. There's typically only 5-6 months in between when the next one really starts in certain states. But anyway, this one's about Georgia. So, to recap, we always knew that there was going to be a runoff in the Georgia special election because Doug Collins took a sizable percentage of the Republican vote. And there were some other Democrats who took sizable chunks from Raphael Warnock. This race, people didn't totally expect Perdue to fall under 50%. He just barely fell under 50%. So it's just barely a runoff. Perdue still, even if there was no 50% rule, Perdue still would have won by about 1.8% and about 80,000 or so votes. So Perdue did win this race, but Ossoff has a chance to catch him. So right now, polls show, or that's not the right one. Here, polls show both Ossoff and Warnock in the lead. Quick disclaimer, there's a chance that one Democrat wins and one Democrat loses. I am predicting that if a Democrat wins one of these races, it's going to be Raphael Warnock and not Jon Ossoff. And I'll kind of go through why over the course of this video. So if we go back to 2012, Romney carried this state by about 8 percentage points. Wasn't very close. Georgia's the state Democrats have been trying to get close. It wasn't really close. I want to focus on the counties surrounding Atlanta: Gwinnett, Cobb, and Henry. These three counties, which are suburban counties, have gotten more diverse and more Democratic over the years. So how did Joe Biden win Georgia? The suburbs flipped. 4 years later, in 2016, Clinton, or we go back to Romney won Gwinnett by 10, Clinton won it by 6. Romney won Henry County by 4 points. Hillary Clinton won by 4. So Cobb, Hillary Clinton won by 2. Romney won it by 13. So big shifts. If we zoom out, New York Times has a nice thing. You see change from 2012. An election where the whole country went far, more and more Republican across the Rust Belt. If we zoom into Georgia, if we look in at Georgia actually went a little to the left. Even though the rural counties went to the right, Georgia's suburban counties, the suburbs of Atlanta, shifted to the left. So, of all things, even though 2016 was not a good year for Democrats, it was a good year for Democrats in Georgia because it looked like in the next few election cycles, they would be able to be competitive because of these suburban shifts. And we saw that again in 2018 when Stacey Abrams won Gwinnett, won Henry, Newton County, but so Stacey Abrams improved in the Georgia suburbs, And if we go to the House, Democrats won a lot of seats. Democrats won Georgia's 6th district, which was the district John Ossoff tried to win. Lucy McBath flipped this seat 2 years ago. And even though Democrats lost in Georgia's 7th district, they only lost by about 400 votes. Carolyn Bordeaux did flip this seat in this election. It was one of the few pickups the Democrats made in the House. So we saw it in the counties, and we also saw it in the congressional races. So the stage was set for the Democrats to do well in Georgia in 2020, and they did. Joe Biden did well in the Georgia suburbs. He got great turnout from Atlanta. He got good turnout from Savannah, Augusta, Athens, Macon, Columbus, and from the from some rural counties. And he won the state by 13,000 or so votes. So that's how Joe Biden won the state of Georgia. But every election kind of has a narrative. And this election was the electorate showed that they wanted Joe Biden, but they didn't want to give him, I don't want to say didn't want to give him power, but they didn't want to give him a mandate. They didn't want him to control all of Congress. They didn't want him to be able to ram through his agenda. And we saw that, especially in the Senate elections, where Republicans won in Iowa, they won in Kansas, they won in Texas, they won in Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, which was really supposed to flip, Maine, which Susan Collins won by 8-9 points, and she was down in every single poll. In Montana, in Alaska, they were competitive. So across the board, the narrative for this election was, we want Joe Biden, but maybe we don't want we don't want a Democratic government. And we saw that in the Senate election. And, if the results had stood, David Perdue would be the senator from Georgia, if there wasn't the 50% rule. A lot of people in politics don't really want to say, I don't know what's going to happen, but with this election on Tuesday, I really don't know. I want to be conservative and say, you know what, I think Perdue's going to win, and I think Loeffler's going to win, but I don't know, because the narrative of this because also, if we compare the Senate election and the presidential election, and unfortunately, we can't use both races, because the other one, the data is just messy. But if we compare Joe Biden's victories in the suburbs versus John Ossoff's, we can see Gwinnett County, Biden got 58, Ossoff got 56. In Cobb, Biden got 56, Ossoff got 54. Henry, Biden got 59, Ossoff 58. In Newton, Ossoff 54. Okay, Biden also 54. But you can see that across Georgia, and especially in the suburbs, which this election is going to be won in the suburbs, people wanted Joe Biden, but they didn't want John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock as much. Now, those were just 2, 3, 4 percentage point differentials between Joe Biden and the Democrats running for the Senate, but Joe Biden only won the state by 13,000 votes. So essentially those Senate or those suburban voters who voted for David Perdue and Joe Biden, that was the difference. Now, the thing is, right now we have a Republican Party that's in Georgia that's kind of crumbling. You have David Perdue, who made something like 2,000 stock trades in the last year, or maybe that was his term. You have both him and Kelly Loeffler, who were investigated for selling off stock right before the COVID pandemic hit, after they received a classified briefing. I think last week Kelly Loeffler took a photo with a former member of the KKK. The Georgia Democratic Party is falling apart. Some Georgia Republicans have said, no, protest the runoff, and don't vote, which might make their turnout go down. The Georgia Republican Party is right now falling apart, as is the National Republican Party a little bit. The message isn't clear. They're still trying to get Trump elected, even though he's not going to get elected at this point. There's just a lot of competing narratives. There's the narrative that the nation wanted Joe Biden, but they didn't necessarily want a Democratic governor. There's the narrative that, the Republican Party as a whole, especially in these runoffs, is really falling apart. There are some voters who are concerned with Ossoff and Warnock's lack of experience in government. So yeah, if you had to ask me my predictions, based off polling, and based off everything, I'll just use the 2022 map. I would have to say, because, and I'm going to go back to the Ossoff's one, because we have a libertarian here, and because Purdue still had an 80,000 vote margin, and because Purdue did better than Trump in the suburbs, I would say that my prediction would be that David Perdue would beat Jon Ossoff. I think it'll be narrow. I don't think it'll be 80,000 votes. I think it could be 50,000 votes, maybe 30,000 votes, but it's going to be close. This might be an election that isn't called for a week. We don't know. Democratic early voting numbers are astronomical right now in Georgia. They are winning the turnout game. What we don't know is, are Georgia Republicans going to get, the rural turnout and the suburban turnout they need on Election Day to win? Because I think it was something like 2.3 million early votes, record-setting. 2.3, that's never been done in an early election. There's also, I have been reading a little bit, there's some people who might vote in one race and won't vote in others. That has happened before. There was a Senate race in 2012 in Missouri, where 100,000 people skipped the Senate race because they just didn't feel like they knew who to vote for. That could occur. We might see different numbers between Warnock and Ossoff. I doubt that'll be the case. There's just so much going on. I could sit here and also say, I think Ossoff's going to win. I really don't know. If I had to guess, and I'm being conservative just because of what we already know, I would have to say that Purdue wins. And if I had to guess, I really don't know about Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock. They're really different candidates. They're running on really different platforms. I don't know if Kelly Loeffler is going to be able to get the suburban turnout that David Perdue will get. So there's just a lot of unknowns with this election. I'm not going to guess the special election race. My guess would be, if I'm being really conservative, and I could be 100% wrong because Democrats are doing great in turnout, they're doing great in fundraising, they're doing great in organizing. Jon Ossoff could win this election. He could win it easily. 1.8% is it's hard to overcome, especially when you have a libertarian candidate who got over 100,000 votes. But who knows? Crazier things have happened in politics. But if I had to guess, I'm not going to make a guess on the special. If I had to guess, for at least the Purdue versus Ossoff race, I would say Purdue wins just because I'm being conservative. Not conservative politically, but, I'm just basing my guess off the data we already have, which there's little of, and, this election really could go one way or another in Georgia. It's going to be really close. To summarize, Joe Biden won the state by 13,000 votes. However, if we look at the Purdue-Ossoff Senate race, Purdue essentially won that race, even though he didn't get to 50%. With the Loeffler-Warnock race, we really don't know. If I had to pick a Democrat to win, it would be Raphael Warnock. I just think because David Perdue's much more of a politician than Kelly Loeffler is, that maybe Raphael Warnock could win, especially because Kelly Loeffler is really, really unpopular, even probably among independents as well. But if we go back to polling data, and if we've learned anything from this election, it's don't trust polling data. The polls would indicate that Ossoff and Warnock are leading. And as you can see, Warnock is ahead by more. I think that even whichever way these Georgia elections go, Warnock will do better than Ossoff. That's my kind of firm guess. I don't know if Purdue's going to win. I don't know if Ossoff's going to win. I don't know if Loeffler's going to win. I don't know if Warnock's going to win. But I do feel strongly that I think that Raphael Warnock is going to do better by tens of thousands of votes than Jon Ossoff. Maybe it's maybe because people are more excited about Raphael Warnock. Maybe the African-American community maybe some in the African-American community will skip the Ossoff-Purdue race. That does happen a lot. That's pretty common. People just feel differently in a Senate race. People have a personal connection with the president. Regardless of who that president is, they either really hate them, they really like them, they feel this way, they think they should be doing this, that, or the other. If you live in a big city like New York, you probably feel that about your mayor. But you don't necessarily feel that about your senator. There's just less enthusiasm about a Senate runoff than there is about a presidential election. So if Ossoff was going to win, it might have been better to do it about, 2 months ago now? But it's not too late. Georgia Republican Party is really falling apart. There's mixed messages. People are saying to boycott. There's even a campaign for people to write in Donald Trump to get him elected to the Georgia Senate. That's not going to happen. But there's just a lot going on. All I can tell you is to please watch the election, and if you are in Georgia, please go vote. Either way, it's just important to make your voice heard. This is going to be my only Georgia video. Politicians won't say it. People on the news won't say it. But I don't know about this election. There's just so much to consider. So this is my one and only Georgia video. I'm going to do a post-Georgia video. It's going to be a crazy election night / election week. It'll probably take a while to count. As remember, Georgia took quite a while to count its ballots in the presidential election. It'll likely, on election night, both Republicans will be in the lead because Republican counties tend to have an easier time counting ballots quickly. But, there's the chance that Ossoff and Warnock come back in the mail-in vote and in the late vote that comes in. So stay tuned. This is my one and only pre-Georgia video. I'll be doing a post-Georgia video. I'll be doing some more reflection on the 2020 election, and then we'll be moving on to 2022. All right, that is all.